Hey folks, did you screw up? Forget to buy a gift for someone? Or maybe you just leave everything to the last minute on purpose because you like the chaos. Whatever the case may be, go pick up some copies of Waiting for the Punch, Words to Live By from the WTF podcast. Just give it to everybody. I guarantee there's something in that book that will resonate for everyone who reads it. I promise. Go get it wherever you get books or at marcmaronbook.com. Dig it. All right, let's do the show.
Lock the gate!
All right, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers, what the fuck buddies, what the fucking ears, what the fuck sticks? What's happening? I'm Marc Maron. It's almost what the fuck miss. You know what I find over the years is that I'm not a big gift giver, and eventually that catches up with you, is that if you're not a big gift giver, you will not be receiving many gifts. And I enjoy a gift, but I think I've lost my appreciation for them, because it's not so much that I have everything I want, but generally through barter and through people wanting me to hear or read or talk about things here on the show, I get sent a lot of unsolicited, I guess we could call them gifts, but sometimes they're not gifts. Sometimes they're just things that eat up space, or things that I eat that I don't enjoy, or things, well, I enjoy them initially, but then I'm like, it's not that great, but sometimes they're all right. Sometimes they're shirts that I can't wear. But I'll tell you one thing, if it comes from a publisher, it comes from a record store, a lot of times what I do is I bring a lot of those books to the library and let them have them for the people who come sit in the library. I've been thinking about going to the library lately because up in my new neighborhood, up where I'm going to be hanging out, up where the new house is, there's a library not too far away, and I was driving by it, and I saw it. I saw the in the windows, just the stacks of books and the tables there, and there wasn't anyone in there, and I thought I should be the guy that sits there at the library all day one day. And so not huge short-term goals to be the guy at the library who probably brings his own snack. The guy at the library brings his own sandwich that smells up the whole library. How about those people on airplanes? Huh? No tuna fish. I know you think you're cutting corners because you brought it from home. You're not going to spend money on the plane. Not going to buy it before you get on the plane. You're going to bring your own stinky tuna salad right into the plane. It'll stink up the entire fucking plane. Can you believe that we smoked on planes? I still can't believe that. I got an email here I'd like to read. I got some other stuff but look, I do want you to have a good holiday and be safe. You know, Christmas is not my bag, but I like how everything quiets down. Like this, probably the last day in LA where there'll be, that'll be populated. Cause a lot of people from around here live other places and they all split. It's just nice and quiet. And you know what you can do that you can never do here? That's amazing. Over the holiday here in LA is you can actually drive on the highways and drive. It's very exciting. I can't wait till this weekend. I'm probably going to spend a lot of time in the car just going like, holy shit, look, we're moving. This is what these roads were made for, baby. Just driving. God damn it. We're sponsored today by Sonos, the speaker system that fills my whole house with music, and now it's even better because of Sonos One, the speaker that understands what you tell it to do. So I'm no longer talking to myself when I'm walking around the house. Well, I am, but I can also talk to Sonos One. Sonos One works with all existing Sonos speakers, but it's also combined with Amazon Alexa, the easy-to-use voice service, so I can have hands-free control of my music. I can just use my voice to play songs or turn up the volume whenever I want. But it's not just for songs. Turn on lights, adjust the temperature, check news and traffic, manage your smart devices, and more, all using a single Sonos speaker. Sonos One is backed by a pair of Class D amplifiers and custom-built drivers, so the sound is face-melting and pure. And since Sonos is continually updating with new features, services, and skills, your music and voice options will keep getting better over time. Right now, Sonos is offering WTF listeners 10% off one order of $2,500 or less for any product on Sonos.com. Dig it! This offer is available for a limited time only and cannot be combined with other discounts or promotions. Use the promo code WTF10, that's capital WTF10 at Sonos.com to receive this offer. Yes, I'm sorry if you're going to be destroyed by this new tax plan, and I guess I'm speaking to most of us. I won't be destroyed, but it ain't good. Not in this state. But I imagine this is going to really hurt a lot of people over time. It might even destroy the country even further than it's already being destroyed. Exciting time. Merry Christmas. Did I mention it? Did I mention the holidays are here? Neal Preston is on the show. Neal Preston is one of the great rock photographers. Just seminal. Is that the word that I want? Seminal images. Seminal images. Talk about that in a minute. I do want to say I bought a suit today. I neglected to keep you totally up to speed. Because if everything goes well and things keep moving in the direction that they are, whereas I'm alive and these events are still taking place and I'm still part of them, I will be going to the Critics' Choice Awards and the SAG Awards, Screen Actors Guild Awards, because I'm nominated for them. And I do not have a suit. I'll be honest with you. I don't wear suits ever. And when I do, it's usually this Western suit that I got on Maron that it's a Western cut black suit. It's kind of a cheapo suit, but it's a high-end Western suit. But that's the only black suit I have. And all the other suits I have, I'll be honest with you, I took from the wardrobe of the remake of Nevermind the Buzzcocks back in 99 maybe, 2000, 17, 18 years ago. Those are the suits I'm working with. So I went out and bought a grown-up suit, spent some money on it. I don't have any kids. I don't have a wife. I'm not in debt. What am I going to do? Just die with my money? What am I going to do with it? Give it to my mom? Give it to the cats? Leave it to a cat charity? Nah, I should leave some in there for the ACLU. That's for sure. Someone's got to fucking try to fix this mess. But the point being, I went to Tom Ford in Beverly Hills, and I bought myself a classic black 3-piece suit with a white shirt and a black tie and black shoes. And I enjoyed wearing it in the store. I enjoyed looking at the tailor make the little wax marks on it. And I looked good in that fucker. I looked good in that mirror. I looked good in that suit. It was worth the bread. I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm gonna wear that suit to those 2 shows and maybe never wear it again. But so what? You only live once. I don't know how long it's gonna last anymore. I don't know how much time I have left. If you're familiar with my special, that would be another callback. Hey, I know some of you have been thinking about home security. You think, yeah, that's something I'll do down the line, right? And then you never get to it. Trust me, I've been there. So why not use this chance to make a New Year's resolution and protect your home? Get Simply Safe Home Security, the best protection, period. Simply Safe has put together a great home security package for WTF listeners. It's all you need to protect your home, your valuables, and your loved ones. It's got entry sensors, motion sensors, glass break sensors. You get a top-notch siren, an extra indoor keypad, keychain activators. There's even a panic button, which I'm inclined to press all the time, even when nothing is going on. But that's just me. Panic. Dig? And right now for the holidays, Simply Safe is giving you a great offer to this arsenal of complete home protection. $200 off the whole thing. $200. Simply Safe is already the best value in home security. There's no contracts, no commitments, but right now you get $200 off this great security package. Go to simplysafewtf.com and click on the Shop Now button. This is possibly the best home security deal you ever see. Save $200 at simplysafewtf.com. I'm going to read an email that I'm going to bring on Neal Preston, talk about him for a minute. A heartfelt grateful thank you. Hi, Mark. I don't know if you'll ever read this, but you have become the most unlikely hero of my life. In my 20s, which I've come to realize were a lot like yours, only with inferior narcotic quality and without Bill Hicks, I fucking hated you. Literally. If we met on the street then, I'm pretty sure one of us would have had to punch the other's mean, smirking face just out of general principle. In my younger days, I always thought of you as a pose, searching for an elusive cause that would never arrive. Now I am 45 and I've just watched your last 4 stand-up specials, and I was truly amazed at what you've become. You are finally the cool older teacher you idolized when you were younger. You have become a truly timelessly cool, great fucking comic. Because when I listen to you, I admire both your specific kind of unvarnished honesty and even more the subtle command of craft and storytelling that makes you the only person who can do that set. Anyway, it should be obvious that clearly what I hated in you in my 20s was what I secretly hated in myself, just projected onto a human-shaped screen. I was the snarling, contemptuous, cred-obsessed punk indie kid who was defined never by what he loved, only by what he hated. I'm trying to get better as I get older, just like you, and as fucked up as you admit to being, you have a earned stillness, maybe not inner peace, but I admire the hell out of you for finding whatever that is, and despite this not being a great time of life for me, your specials gave me real joy and hope for the future. Sorry for the long rambling nonsense. Sincere thanks, Blue. Isn't that interesting? An earned stillness. Maybe not inner peace. I have a earned stillness. I like that, man. I like that, Blue. I appreciate that. I never thought of stillness versus inner peace. Stillness. I can do that. I think it's because my brain is rotting, though, and there's some gaps. You know, like a lot of the stuff that I used to sort of like really fester about. A lot of my memory is kind of like, it's not foggy. It's just, it's not as present as it used to be. I got to dig a bit. There's a stillness in that until I start digging. And if I'm not digging for memories, I'm digging for things to be unstill about. But I appreciate that input, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I don't know if I would have hit you. I've never hit anybody in my life. So I don't think that would have happened. Probably just the look, though. Just the look. Neal Preston. This is an interesting guest because, it came to me through Cameron Crowe's people. Neal Preston has a book out called Exhilarated and Exhausted. It's available wherever you get books. It's a big, beautiful book. You can check out his work at PrestonPictures.com. But he did so many great rock photographs. And how important were photographs, man? I mean, how important were they? Especially before the internet when you were younger, if you're my age, those pictures, man. Those pictures. There are certain pictures. He took the picture of Robert Plant with holding the dove. He took that picture. I talked to him about it. It's just that pictures meant so much. They hung on our walls. We looked at them. Pictures of our heroes. They were comforting. They were how we saw them. There were moments that humanized them and elevated them at the same time. There's a lot of those, of all kinds of people. Heroic people, important people, or maybe just fucking rebels. Right? But sometimes that's the pick you want. That one that just characterizes everything that you look up to in that person, even if it's fucked up. Anyways, I got an opportunity to talk to Neal. I thought he would have some good stories, and he did. And this is me talking to Neal Preston. The reality is that you've done all these iconic photos, and they're stunning, and they're memorable. But I would say 80%, maybe, of the people in there, or 70%, are probably gone.
I haven't done the count, but you
want to work cans?
Yeah, sure.
Like I loved Petty and I loved Bowie, and on some level you realize, well, this generation is of that age. People live longer, but people like yourself, what are you, in your 60s?
I'm 65.
So you're a little younger than the guys you were shooting a lot of times, of that generation.
A lot of times. On the other hand, Tom Petty was 1 year older than me.
But, they lived hard. They made the choice they made, and you're not horrendously surprised when a rock star dies in his 60s. Right. Sometimes you're surprised if they made it that far. But still, when it happens, even if you didn't listen to their last 4 records, the idea that they were here meant something.
Absolutely, and each one of those artists that who have passed away that I've worked with, each one of those deaths takes a little bit of my soul with it, and some I knew better than others.
Yeah, how well did you know Tom?
I mean, I knew Tom. We didn't hang out and play poker or anything, but I'd shot him many times over the years. I did all the Wilburys pictures and went to the Super Bowl with Tom when he did the Super Bowl, and had shot him many times during his career. And it's just it's gut-wrenching. It's absolutely gut-wrenching when you get news like this. The news about Glenn Frey really just took us for a loop.
Oh yeah, that was. I guess they're all sort of a surprise.
Yeah, it's like it's a surprise. But you're not shocked, but you're surprised. I mean, it's going to happen sooner or later. Greg Allman.
Oh.
That was really tough because he was a guy who was very important to us early on in my career and Cameron's career, and was a god. Greg Allman was a god to us.
I saw him pass me by. I was at the Bowery Hotel. It must have been, not even 6 months before he died. I felt a presence walk behind me, and I just turned around, and it was Greg, and he looked like a ghost. And, I didn't realize how small he was.
Well, well, here's the thing. He never used to be that small. When we met Greg in 73,
yeah,
Greg was about 6. He had to be 6'1".
Really?
Oh, yeah. Long and lean, long blonde hair.
Yeah. You sure he wasn't just wearing platforms?
I'm telling you, he was, but he was really tall and lean, know. And when we finally, 43 years later, Cameron and Greg and I were in the same room. We went down to Del Mar to see him play, and Greg had shrunk.
In Florida?
No, at Del Mar, at the racetrack.
Oh, okay.
By San Diego.
Yeah.
And we walked into Greg's dressing room, and the three of us had not been in the same room together in 43 years.
Yeah.
And he was about 6 inches shorter.
Really?
Yeah, it was really insane, and he was much shorter than Cameron and myself. And
Cameron was like 15 when you met him the first time, right?
Yeah, but I was 20.
Yeah.
But Greg was visibly,
no kidding,
had aged, 80 years and 40 years. And we took a picture with him, and Greg insisted that I be on one side and Cameron be on the other side so that he could rest his arms on each of our shoulders as if to prop himself up. And what I've just found out recently is Greg knew at that point and a couple of years before that he was dying.
Because of the liver?
Yeah. He had found out almost 5 years before he passed away.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting story. I was in London, I don't know, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and I got an email from someone at Gibson Guitars saying that one of Greg's daughters was trying to get a hold of me. That it was important, something to do with the posthumous album that was going to be coming out later this year. And she ended up writing me a note. I spoke to her when I got back to L.A., and it turned out that Greg had recorded an album at Muscle Shoals Studios, and he knew he was going to be dying. He recorded this record, and the title of the record is Southern Blood. And his daughter, Layla Allman, contacted me saying that that Greg had become enamored of this painter in New York named, I believe, Vincent Castiglia, whose kind of thing was to use human blood in the paint as part of the pigment. And Greg fell in love with this guy's paintings. He bought a piece and then called the guy and said, I want you to paint my album cover in my own blood. And so he sent Vincent a couple of vials of his blood, and the painter put him in the fridge, and they were supposed to set up a photo shoot as to do a reference photo so the guy could paint from it, and Greg was too sick to do that photo shoot, and he passed away. So Layla called me saying, the entire family has decided that the one picture that we want him to use, it's unanimous, is your photo of Greg.
Which one, from the 70s?
From
the portrait?
73, that very angelic looking portrait. And I called her back and I said, absolutely. I'm honored. I don't want to send, whatever you need. And the guy did the painting, and they unveiled it about 3-4 weeks ago at the Grammy Museum. And it's painted in blood. And, when blood dries, you get that kind of rust color. It's not bright red.
Whoa. Heavy, huh?
Really heavy. And I was, I was iffy about how it would look, but when I saw it in person, the painter caught the gleam in Greg's eye.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, the surreal aspect of shooting a picture of Greg Allman 43 years ago and then having it be included in his album that has just come out, and he recorded Muscle Shoals and there's all those ghosts in the machines. Don Was, produced the record. And there's some really great, there's one track, I can't remember the name, but it's really swampy and bluesy, kind of like Midnight Rider, but just swampy.
Was it with Allman Guys?
No, it was with his touring band.
Okay.
Actually.
Because, Don did that last, I think he had a lot to do with that last Stones record, the blues record, which was great.
I haven't listened to a Rolling Stones record since 1981.
Well, I'm the same as you, though, but this was the one that they'd been talking about for years, an all blues record. It could have been their first album. You've got to listen. You've got to listen to it.
I'll give it a shot.
I'm telling you, man.
Okay.
I'm telling you.
Right,
I was just saying, I believe that the last good one they did might have been 81, and I hadn't really given
Some
a
girls.
shit. Right. I liked Emotional Rescue. I was all right, and I liked Tattoo You too. It was okay. There's some good ones on there. But as far as the whole record goes, I agree with you. But this thing, if you're a Stones guy, you'll be like, oh my God. It's all blues covers.
Interesting.
The whole thing's blues covers, dude.
And did they bring in other musicians? It's basically man. Keith.
No, it's Keith and Daryl. The guy's been with me. Right. Eric Clapton sits in on a few, plays a lead on some. And Mick is all over the harmonica again, like real deal. Like they're covering Howlin' Wolf, Jimmy Reed tunes again. I'm telling you, it could have been their first record.
It sounds like their first record.
Yeah. Dude, you got to listen to it.
Well, I'll listen to that if you listen to Greg's record.
I didn't even know about Greg's record.
It's called Southern Blood.
Of course I'll listen to Greg's record.
It's and you know what? That day that when we saw Greg 2 years ago, and he was very frail and obviously not in good health.
Yeah.
The weird thing was the second he got on stage and started singing, his voice was there. He was right there, right on it. And after the set was over, I noticed that he didn't want to get off the stage. He kind of wandered around as the crowd filed out of the stands. He's talking to roadies. He's, talking to this person, that one, and checking his keyboards. He did not want to get off the stage.
Because that's where he's eternal.
That's exactly, and that's home.
Yeah,
it's home to him, and I noticed that, and it turned out I was correct.
Were you shooting that?
Yep,
you shot that.
Yeah, in fact, I shot a picture of Greg going down. Finally, when he went off the stage, going down the stairs, and so you see his back, and he's holding on to the rail. And
where's that picture?
Pictures in the follow-up. We couldn't put every picture in the book, so but I thought this could be the last time Greg ever walks off a stage.
It's funny now you talk about it and thinking about the book. Really, none of the pictures in the book, and I just put it down, are sad pictures or documents of the end of people. They're all very vital. You know what I mean? Like all of them. Maybe even almost every picture in the book are these guys, whether they're fucked up or they're whatever they are, they're not dying.
I guess not visibly. I mean, John Lee Hooker, obviously, that
he's still
was
alive, isn't he? Oh no, he's dead.
Oh no.
Right, but he looked like that for 20 years.
Yeah, true. I mean, boy, if the lines on that face could talk.
But no, I think it's a good thing. But like when you talk about this,
I never really realized that
the picture. When you talk about the picture of Greg, it's sort of I'd like to see that be like even the picture of Leonard Cohen, which is 20 years ago, and it's in 95, 2005, 2008. 20 years before he died. He's an older man, and he's in that the meditation position. Yeah, well, it's a beautiful picture. I know he
was a monk.
Yeah, he was a monk.
Yeah, he was a monk, and he was. We had to go up Mount Baldy, where there's a. What do you call it? Monastery?
Yeah.
A monkastery?
Yeah.
And he was literally living the life of a monk where you don't really speak and you live in a very Spartan manner. Except that every once in a while he would go down the hill and play a couple of gigs.
Oh,
so,
really?
The gigging monk.
Yeah. Well, it's a sweet picture of him. It really is. But I looked through the book and I was going to tell you about the painting. You get a call from the Almond estate, the Almond family, the Almond daughter to contribute to your photographs so they could be painted. I would imagine that there have been literally hundreds of thousands of high school pieces, drawings and paintings and silk screens done from your photographs.
Oh, more than hundreds of thousands, and that's we'll throw that question over to my lawyer.
But not to sell, but just in the middle of class when they should be studying, they're drawing Kiss.
Absolutely,
in the snow,
and they all end up finding their way backstage and giving those paintings to someone in the band.
Oh yeah, from your photograph.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Let me ask you,
especially someone like Jimmy Page or Stevie Nicks.
Oh yeah. Well, those photos you did of Stevie Nicks, was that the only shoot you did with her?
Oh God, no.
No, I mean the one on the top of the
rooftop,
not outside of Fleetwood Mac.
No, I've done many shoots with it. That was the first kind of one-on-one shoot that we did. I mean, I had started doing some performance photos of Fleetwood Mac around the time just before the Rumors tour. But when Stevie did her first solo record called Belladonna, I was assigned by a magazine who knew that I had some sort of relationship with Fleetwood Mac, and they sent me to her house to do a solo shoot with her. And that was the beginning of what's been a very long friendship, and we've done lots of photo shoots. And I'd to be honest, I'd have to say she's the closest thing I've ever had to a muse.
Oh yeah,
in my life. And I've you read the last page in the book where I thank people, and there's three artists that I set aside to thank specifically, and those three people are Brian May, Stevie Nicks, and Pete Townsend for different reasons. And Stevie is one of the most creative people I have ever met in my life.
Yeah. And why Brian?
Brian, I've worked closely with Queen for years and years and years, and Brian has been a friend, a cheerleader for me. He's, he is literally a rocket scientist. I don't know if you know.
I know, he's a great guitar player.
Yeah, he's got a doctorate in astronomy.
Oh, no kidding.
And he co-wrote a book about the origin of the universe.
Huh.
He's also an expert in 3D photography, stereography, stereoscopy, 3D photography. And he's also the only rock star that ever came to my mom and dad's house.
That's sweet.
And but he's been just a big supporter of mine, and I've spent a lot of time with Queen.
Yeah.
Before and after Fred passed away, and Pete because of Pete's one of my two idols in my life, the other being John Lennon, but Pete's lyrics, Pete's his tortured brain, he's a Mensa level intelligence, and his self-doubt and all that stuff, it just really speaks to me. And
interesting.
And reminds me that it's all going to be okay.
He's one of the self-doubters, huh?
Oh, big time.
It's funny, I had Randy Newman in here a few weeks ago. Talked to him for a couple hours. And I love him.
Did you read my piece?
I read your piece on Randy
about
when he couldn't talk. What happened that day?
Well,
what year was that?
That was that had to be the early '80s, late '70s, something like that. And I get this assignment to shoot Randy Newman, and I'm really excited.
Yeah,
he's Political Science is still. It's great. One of the great songs of all time.
I just saw him perform it recently. It's great. He's great.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I get sent to Randy's house and knock on the door, and he opens the door. I stick my hand out. Hi, I'm Neal, and he shakes my hand, and he has a piece of paper in his hand that says, "Can't talk, doctor's orders," with an arrow pointing to his throat. And I thought he was kidding.
Yeah.
So I'm doing this whole shoot where he can't say a word.
Yeah.
And I'm I'm doing anything I can to
Is it
bust
necessary? You just felt like
this is the guy who can say more in one sentence than anyone can say in an entire book.
So you're personally disappointed that he can't.
Oh, I'm beyond personally disappointed.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to get inside his brain a little.
Yeah.
But I'm there to get the pictures.
Right.
And at first I thought he was kidding, and after 15, 20 minutes, I realized he's not kidding.
Yeah.
So, but I'm getting a lot of nods and smiles and this, and can you go over here? And and I'm getting thumbs ups.
Yeah.
Finally, after, I don't know, a couple of hours, I wrapped, and I said, okay, Randy, it's a wrap. And he, big smile now, and my assistant's packing up the equipment. And I've tried everything. I've stood on my head and spit out nickels to try to get him to even laugh.
Yeah.
Can't do it, but I decide I'm going to try one last time.
Yeah.
And I'm walking out the door, and I turn around and I say, so you're starting a tour next week?
Yeah.
And he nods yes. And I say, what city you starting? And he comes up to me and he whispers in my ear, Detroit. That was the only word he said in 2 hours, Detroit.
Yeah, he's a sweet guy.
Oh, my God.
Do you find it's necessary? Do you feel that you're compelled when you shoot? I mean, obviously, because Randy is Randy, you said you wanted to get inside his brain. But do you feel you need to do that generally with these musicians that you shoot?
Yes and no. It depends on the artist. I mean, I do my homework going in, but it's more a question of how am I going to lead the person into the photograph that I want to shoot, because it's a dance.
Yeah.
You know, I lead, you follow, and together we tango, and we make something.
But if you're shooting a concert, it's not, you don't have that much control, right?
If I'm, I have a lot of control as to what I decide I want to shoot.
Right.
But I'm at the mercy of the lighting director and this
Right.
and that. But if you let me do what I do, I'm going to get the shot that you want me to get, because I know that, especially my performance photos, they don't look like anyone else's photos.
Yeah.
They just have a different, it's just the way that I frame things and shoot things. I like clean backgrounds and negative space. And
Yeah, I can see it. What do you think is your most iconic photograph?
well, the one that has become, well, there's two or three, but the one that, if I had to pick one, it would have to be the photograph of Jimmy Page swigging the Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
Because that has become the iconic photo
Rock and
representing
roll.
70s excess.
Yeah.
And, to me, it's just a dude swigging Jack Daniels. But interestingly enough, the Jack Daniels company refused to buy a big print for their wall. And
Because that's not how you drink Jack Daniels?
close. Because they said, because it is arguably the most famous picture of anyone on earth drinking Jack Daniels. But they said, we can't. And my agent said, why? And the guy from Jack Daniels said, because in the photo, Jimmy Page is not drinking responsibly. He's going to drink any fucking way he wants. Okay? But that has become, for some reason, and that was just literally a one click and move on to the next thing.
The weird thing is like Jack Daniels was the rock and roll drink for years, because I know Keith drank it. Everyone drank it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in high school, that's what I embarked on, was to drink that. And it was difficult to drink because it's terrible tasting.
Oh, it's god awful.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I forced myself to drink it because I thought that was the shit to drink.
Well, there was one point.
I love the label. You got to love the label.
It must have been around the time, I don't know, I was out with Van Halen or someone like that, and I decided it would be cool to go through a swigging Jack Daniels period. My gastroenterologist is still giving me shit about that.
Yeah.
Because that'll rip your guts out, man.
How'd that go for you?
Not very well.
It's hard to keep down. When he's
I don't drink anymore and haven't drank in a long time. But
Me neither.
I mean, that's nasty
It's been
shit.
a long
It
time.
is nasty stuff.
So what are the other two? What are the other two iconic ones?
Oh, well, there's Robert Plant holding the white bird.
Yeah.
And
that just happened?
That's a happy accident. Yeah, that was an outdoor gig in 73 at Kezar Stadium in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And it was a daytime gig, which is unusual. The band had 12 white doves. Let's be honest, they're probably pigeons.
Right.
But 6 in one cage, 6 in another cage, and one cage was behind Jonesy's. amps, and one cage was behind Jimmy's amps.
Yeah.
And the idea was that at the end of Stairway, as a metaphor for peace and love in San Francisco, the birds would be released into the air and into the crowd. And Stairway ended, and roadies opened the cages, and the birds fluttered away, except for one bird that did a slow turn around the crowd and then flew right back towards the stage. Robert just happened to stick his hand out, and the bird just happened to land right on.
Come on.
I swear to God. I mean, you couldn't plan this. I mean, it's not one of those eagles at the Super Bowl that, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a pigeon. It's a white pigeon. And that's how it happened. I mean, you know what? I like to say if you have your hands on the bat and your eyes on the ball, sooner or later a pitcher's going to hang a curve and boom.
And at that time, I mean, did you have shutter engines then? I mean, could you?
You mean motor drives?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, but you have to keep your eyes open, you know.
And it sounds like from the when you talk about earplugs and stuff that you need to hear that between the shutter drive and your finger, you need to know the decision.
I have to be able to hear it. Otherwise, there's a weird disconnect.
Yeah.
I tried earplugs once at a Motley Crue show, and I couldn't. I could feel my camera's fire, but I couldn't quite hear that, and it just threw me off a little bit.
It's a missing part of the experience.
Yeah.
You were disconnected a little.
Yeah, it's because it's all, after a while, it's like a guitar player.
Become one with
it's
it.
by touch, you know. It's muscle memory, whatever you want to call it. And there was one day in particular with the Foo Fighters that I probably lost 20% of my hearing.
Do you feel it now? You got your hearing's fucked up?
If I'm in crowded restaurants, I cannot have a first date in a crowded restaurant because I turn into George Burns. Huh? What? Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, the Foo Fighters, rehearsed in a little garage room, not much bigger than this studio, probably just a little bit bigger. And, as they walk in there, and as I'm getting ready to walk in, a roadie says, here, you might need these earplugs. Yeah. And I said, no, don't want them. The roadie says, you might really need them. And I said, no. And the roadie says, trust me, you're going to need them. And I rarely do something like this, but I said, listen, you know, I've worked with this one and that one. The Who and Kiss and Zeppelin, you know, as you wish. Closes the door, band starts to play. Within 15 seconds, I have a migraine. It's so loud. Within 30 seconds, you know, I'm sure blood is pouring from my ears. At 45 seconds, I am physically ill and about to vomit.
Really?
Yeah. And I shot out my one roll of film, and I had to get out of there. I was physically ill. It was so loud.
And they didn't wear earplugs.
They didn't wear jack shit. Yeah. And I know that day ruined a good 20% of my hearing.
Yeah, my buddy Dean Del Rey, he tracks his hearing loss to an AC/DC concert, I think with the Those About to Rock tour with the blasting of the gun. He was right next to the speaker, and he lost it.
Yeah, well, you know, Motley Crue used to have the floor monitors in the pit. And
where you're running around in the pit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So and on stage, you know, and it's not going to help your hearing.
Well, where does it start, though? Like, where do you get like, I did some photography when I was a kid, but it sounds like, you know, you were a real nerd for it. I mean, where did you get interested in both music and photography?
Well, music, my life can be divided into two absolute distinct phases.
Yeah.
Pre-February 1964 and post-February 1964.
Right.
If you know what I'm talking about.
The Beatles.
The Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
Yeah.
And literally,
how old were you?
How old was I? I would have been almost 12.
Uh-huh.
And that's, as I think I wrote in the book, that was the nuclear bomb that John Lennon delivered directly to my cortex.
Yeah.
And the day before that, my whole life was, what did Mickey Mantle do to hit a home run yesterday? The Yankees, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
The day after, I got to have a guitar, Beatle boots, blah, 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 blah.
Were you growing up at this
I
point?
grew up in Forest Hills, New York.
In Queens.
In Queens, that's right. And
By the World Fairground?
Oh, yes. So I used to walk to the World's Fair, and you used to be able to get in for a quarter if you were with your parents. So me and my buddies.
You were there for the World's Fair.
Mm-hmm.
You saw
that
it
was
happen.
64, 65,
right.
yeah.
And it ran for a while?
Well, it ran 2 years, 1964 and 65.
And you could just go over there.
Yeah, we would walk. I mean, it wasn't a short walk, but it was 2-3 miles.
Yeah.
And then me and my two buddies would stand outside the cashier, and we would wait for a couple to come by, and we'd ask them if they could pretend that they were our parents.
Sure.
And people would say yes, and we'd give them a quarter for each of us to get in, and they'd pay the 75 cents. And then the second we get on the other side of the turnstile, we'd tear off running away from our, quote, parents.
Yeah.
And I must have gone 20 times.
What was there to do?
Oh, my God, all the pavilions, the General Motors Futurama, they had the spin art things with the paint.
Sure,
it was the World's Fair. The video telephones, which now, I laugh at, but
you'd never seen it before that.
No, I mean, no one had ever really seen it before then. And then the Unisphere became after the World's Fair was over, the Unisphere became kind of a meeting place for all the teenagers in Queens, and it's where you'd go to
hang out,
cop pot and
drink
second alls, reds, and meet girls and all that
so
stuff.
So the fairgrounds were open once the fair was gone.
Yeah, well, it was Flushing Meadow Park,
right?
Right. And what happened was I had gotten my first camera when I was right around the time of the Beatles. From my first of 3 brothers-in-law. Sorry, Carol, but I just blew it for you. So photography was my hobby, and somehow my love of music and my love of photography ended up morphing into one super hobby. And there was a concert series at the New York State Pavilion, which was left over from the World's Fair, and couple of my buddies had gone and shot some pictures at some concert there from their seats. And then I went and shot one of the other shows there, and I don't remember which one it was. And we decided that if we showed some prints to someone at the local ticket office for this concert series, maybe we could get them for free.
Were you processing at that point? Are you doing your own processing?
I'm souping film in a friend of mine's sink.
Yeah,
absolutely. And the negs are a little dirty. What can I say?
Yeah.
And so through a weird quirk, just a bizarre happenstance, the office that we took these prints to try and get free concert tickets turned out to be the promoter's office of the whole concert series.
Yeah.
And they started letting us into their shows for free, and that's how I got my start.
How old are you at that point?
16 and a half.
And how'd your parents feel about this? What did your father do for a living?
Well, my dad was a Broadway stage manager.
Oh my God!
He was a production stage manager for every big musical in the heyday.
So you grew up in the theater.
I grew
almost.
up around the theater. I mean, he was stage manager for The King and I, Camelot, Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh my God!
My Fair Lady.
You saw all those shows?
Oh yeah, and in fact, the first performance photo that I ever shot, I must have been 14, and it's in the book, is a photo of the understudy for the lead in Fiddler on the Roof. And I brought my camera. I used to love going to the theater. Was it
Topol's understudy or Zero Mostel?
No, it was Herschel Bernardi's understudy.
Oh, Herschel Bernardi. Did those other two guys do it, or am I making that up?
Well, no, one did the movie, I think, and Zero Mostel, I think, opened the show. But the show ran
Herschel
for like
Bernardi.
100 years.
Yeah, right.
So Herschel was played Tevye, the lead, and Bette Midler was also in the show. Believe it or not,
as the daughter.
As one of the daughters, yeah. But Herschel was sick one night, and this guy, Harry Goz, was his understudy. And I had my camera with me, and my dad used to stand at the little podium right on stage left calling the lighting cues. Mm-hmm. Now, I'd seen the show so many times that I knew when there was going to be a big speech and when there was going to be a laugh. So when Harry was kind of near me and was doing the speech, I knew there was going to be a big laugh. I waited for the laugh, and I cocked my shutter. I shot one frame during that laugh because my dad could have gotten fired if the stagehand saw me shoot.
Oh, okay, union rules?
Union rules.
But you're a kid. Come on.
Doesn't matter. It's New York unions, baby. And he could have gotten billed for a photo call for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But I snuck the photo. I made a print. My dad loved it. He gave it to the actor who loved it. And it turned out that Harry had a series of photography books similar to like the World Book Encyclopedia.
Yeah.
And he gave them all to me, and I devoured them. And
isn't that interesting?
From that point on, I didn't even make a decision to be a photographer. I just was.
You did this amazing picture, and then the guy's like, this kid's interested, and he gave you the things that changed your life.
Absolutely.
Because he saw your creativity, encouraged it, and he's like, this kid could use these.
Absolutely.
He just had them because he's a hobbyist?
I guess
who
so.
knows?
I don't even remember, but and they were big books, you know.
And you just like nerded out completely.
Completely. And you know, the analogy I make is when you're 15, 16 years old and you go to driver's ed in school, some kids get behind the wheel of that car. They don't know how to drive, but they instinctively know the relationship between the gas pedal and the clutch, and you know, that's how I was with a camera.
Yeah,
the shutter, the shutter release, the diaphragm, the film speed. It just made sense to me.
And unlike driving, you know, you operate that machine, you get these amazing results that last forever.
Tell me about it. I mean, Mark, I don't know how it happened, but it happened just that organically.
Well, the interesting thing about the book too is in the essays, there is a sort of teaching element to it. Like there is a tone in some of them where if you're going to do this, these are the rules.
Yeah. Well, yes, and I wanted the way I tried to frame everything in my book, no pun intended, was that to make it about my job.
Yeah.
This is the job I have. There are very few people in the world that have this kind of job. And you think it's so glamorous? Well, sometimes it is, but a lot of times it isn't. You got another thing coming if you think it's so super glamorous. And these are the potholes in the road. So
for a while there, you're getting in free, and that was your camera.
Oh, I'm always getting in free.
No, I know. But at the beginning, you know, that was the ticket. That was your pay. Yeah, at the very beginning, you showed the promoter the pictures. Yeah, come shoot the pictures.
Right, and come to our shows. And then every time I was backstage, I would, you know, it was a burgeoning rock scene, and there were people who were starting new rock magazines, and I'd get little assignments from them.
When was the first time you made money?
It's actually in the book. I had photographed, me and my shooting partner at the time had photographed Steve Winwood.
Yeah.
Who was a big star at that time.
Yeah.
Traffic, et cetera, et cetera. And we go down to the 1 Avenue Hotel in Greenwich Village and shoot these pictures of Steve Winwood.
Yeah.
You know, 15-minute, 20-minute photo shoot.
Yeah.
After they ran in this little rock magazine, we get a call from D. Anthony's office, Steve's manager.
Yeah.
D really likes the photos, and he'd like you to come down to his office tomorrow and bring a stack of prints. And, you know, this is big time to us, right? So we print up 12, 14 prints, and we get on, we used to get on the subway to go into Manhattan. And, you know, I was still a senior in high school. And we get up there, and we walk into D's office, and D was a legendary figure. He was, you know, a lot of bling everywhere, and he was obviously someone not to fuck with, and you know, very imposing guy, legendary guy. And we give him the stack of prints, and he's got a diamond ring about the size of a watermelon on.
Yeah.
And he looks through them, and not much of a reaction. And he says, "Boys, I'm buying these." He's not asking us if he can, he's notifying us.
Yeah.
And he pulls out a wad of bills and peels off 3 20s and says, will this do? Now, $60 cash to us in 1970 was like $1 trillion.
Yeah.
And we walked out of there, you know, high as a kite. I mean, $60 for Princess Steve Winwood. Okay, the end of that story is 2 years later, I'm sitting at United Artists Records on Sunset Boulevard, and I see this new compilation called Winwood that had come out. What do you think's on the cover? a $60 photo. And so I learned my lesson about that. But
well, it still must have felt good.
Oh, it felt fantastic.
Did you get photo credit at least?
I did. Yes. So the company we had at the time got photo credit, and it was the first time I'd ever seen anything of mine on any record package. And
you were like 18 or 19?
Yeah. Well, at that point I would have been 19 or 20 because it was a couple of years after we made the sale. Yeah, maybe 19 and a half.
It seems like the formative years, though, of you really be getting your legs in this were with with Zepp and the Almonds.
Well, yeah, I mean, what happened was I moved to L.A. in 71. My girlfriend at the time was in publicity, and she worked with a lot of big bands, and I was just immersed in the business. I knew people from the business in New York. And,
you mentioned Danny Goldberg.
Yeah, Danny I knew from Danny was a rock writer for Hullabaloo magazine, which was the previous incarnation of Circus magazine. So I knew Danny.
What was he like as a younger man?
Same as he was as an older guy. He had hair down to here. I mean, he was great. I mean, he's very bright, and and I knew him from Circus magazine. So my partner and I had a retainer deal with Atlantic Records that we negotiated in 72. So we'd be sent out to shoot all the Atlantic artists, be it Led Zeppelin or whoever was on the label at the time. I can't even think. Manhattan Transfer, people like that.
That's a big gap.
Yeah. Well,
those are two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and actually, I did my first album cover assignment for Atlantic, which was an Eddie Harris cover, and I don't even like jazz, but it's called Eddie Harris, Instant Death.
Yeah.
At any rate, when Zeppelin was out in 72 and 73, I was sent by Atlantic to do some pictures here and there, and 73 was when I finally met Peter, and they kind of...
Peter Grant?
Yeah, and they kind of...
talk a lot about Peter Grant.
Yeah, well, Peter Grant was...
you learned some lessons, huh?
I learned a lot about life from Peter Grant. I mean, Peter Grant...
Was their road manager?
No, was the manager.
The manager.
The manager. Richard Cole was the road manager.
Okay.
But anyway, I started doing some stuff for them at the end of 73, and then they formed their own label called Swan Song in 74. And Danny, we were hired to photograph the launch party at the Bel Air Hotel. And then Danny had said to me, I think we're going out on the road, in the winter. And I said, well, if you want anyone to come on the road with you as a tour photographer, please consider me.
He was in publicity.
Yeah,
then.
he was doing their PR. Yeah. And never dreaming that the call would come a couple of months later. And I remember distinctly the phone rang, and it was Danny, and he said, you still want to come out on the road with us? Yeah. And I was hired right there and then as their tour photographer. And when you're 23,
1972?
No, 74 I was hired.
Yeah.
So I was 22, and it will never hurt you having Led Zeppelin on your resume.
Yeah.
Ever. But, I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't know what I was getting into. But that was the turning point of my career. I mean, because, it's like working for Sinatra and Elvis at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, this Led Zeppelin, they're a cloistered bunch. You've all heard the rumors, and not all of them are true. But
which ones?
Well, everyone talks about how crazy they were, the sex and drugs, and if that's how you define crazy, I will tell you that an REO Speedwagon tour is just as crazy as a Zeppelin tour. Okay, but there was a lot of drama and tension, and they were a very cloistered bunch. I mean, it was almost like the mafia. Once you're in, you're in, and once you're out, you're out.
Well, I think you made a good point in the text of the book in saying that, like, whatever you hear, whatever you may know, or whatever really went on, these guys were still professionals that showed up for work and did the fucking job of rock star.
Oh yeah, as I had to do.
Yeah,
I mean, I had to. Look,
you were partaking.
I was the ringleader some of the time. I mean, if you read the article about Robin Zander getting arrested, but I'm there to do a job.
Yeah.
And regardless of what happens that way or any other way, I'm there to do a job, and if I don't do my job, I'm going to get thrown out on my ass.
Well, the way you described cocaine in a couple of those passages, I was like, this guy knows. Like the excitement in the text. There's 2 descriptions of cocaine where I'm like, oh yeah, this guy did some blow. The rock in Venezuela, and then the pharmaceutical glittering coke on the rug. I'm like, there's that moment where you're like, oh, what a waste.
Oh, how about the one where Sly Stone was smoking crack in my car?
That is the best story.
And when we've got to where,
but he wasn't. It didn't sound like that was before crack. He was smoking base.
Oh, it was base. Yeah, sorry. And after chasing him around for a week, I finally have him in the car. We're supposed to go 5 minutes up the road, Mandalay, in Mandeville Canyon.
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey man, I just 5 minutes around the corner, man. I just got to do a quick errand, man. Come on. 5 minutes around the corner."
Yeah.
Okay. He takes me 22 miles as the crow flies to La Brea and Jefferson. On the way on the San Marcos freeway, he pulls out an acetylene torch out of a little box and and I'm rolling with the punches, and then we get to some weird ex-Marine's house, some PTSD guy who
that's where coke takes you,
who can clearly not sit in a room without facing a window,
right?
And they proceed to bring out the biggest bag of blow I'd ever seen. And as I wrote in the book, I was torn between wanting to run as fast as I could out of there and wanting to stay forever.
Sure, man. Yeah. Those are the days,
But
and you got the shot. He got high, and you got the shot.
We got it.
It's pretty crazy.
And coke. I don't recommend cocaine to anybody. I mean, it's a nasty. I have this theory that you can be the sweetest little girl growing up in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Do enough coke, and a week later you can be hanging from the ceiling in handcuffs with a nun's habit on and whips, and
Yeah, there's something about it, and it's weird because looking back on it, I've been sober like over 18 years now, and it's like, it's all about that first hour. The rest of it is just like...
It's not even that. It's, and it's been longer than that since I've done blow. I remember that going to the dealer's house was more of a turn on than actually doing it.
Scoring it, yeah.
Yeah, it was, and I had that epiphany one night. I remember that there was this girl that I had a real crush on. Her name was Maxie.
Yeah.
And I'd done everything I could to get her to come over to the house. And finally, one night, she called me up and said she was going to come over to the house.
Yeah.
And I had been just hoovering. And I was convinced I saw a UFO. Okay, I was on the deck of my house, and Cameron and I
downside of prolonged cocaine.
No. Oh, this is way downside. And Cameron and I were roommates at the time, and he was down in San Diego, and I was upstairs, and I'm hoovering, and I'm waiting for Maxie to call, and I'm convinced there's a UFO. You could not convince me of anything else.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I actually, and I'm embarrassed to say this, I called the Naval Observatory in Mount Palomar near San Diego. Hi, I'm calling from the Hollywood Hills. My name's Neal. I want to report a UFO. And then the guy on the other end of the line is like, yeah, okay. What was your name again? Yeah, okay. Well, I'll put it on the list. Okay. And then, of course, she calls 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi, it's Maxie. Maxie. There's a UFO. Needless to say, she never came over. I never heard from her again.
And did you find out what the UFO was?
There wasn't a UFO. It might have been a guy with a lighter,
or something.
smoking a cigarette on Mulholland.
Yeah.
Who the fuck knows? And
that's where coke takes you,
oh, baby.
So but you got to do, but see, like I got a little taste of it. I used to hang out with Kennison in the 80s. When he was at the peak of his career, and that was where I really hit the wall on coke. And you talk very specifically about the charisma and the personality of some of these guys, and to be around them, if you're of a certain type, is pretty energizing and pretty
intoxicating.
Exciting. Yeah, that's a good word.
It's intoxicating, but. Every member of, certainly the bigger bands, every member of every band has his or own personality.
Yeah.
And as I say in the book, a rock tour also has its own personality.
Yeah.
they're very different things. And the personality of a rock tour can turn on a dime, given a bad review, a bad audience, a bad interview gone awry, the drummer getting the clap.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where the tension comes from on rock tours, and you know,
girl problems.
Yeah, I mean, all of that stuff. Photographer, you know, pulling a cable out by mistake.
Yeah, because you forget that, like, these tours, sometimes you're with these guys for months.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's like a closed community.
Oh, very much
smaller
so.
than high school.
Very, very much so, and that's why we have things on tours called road wives. You know, you hook up with one of the girls on the tour, and then the second the tour is over, you never see her again.
Yeah, I just remember that from Almost Famous.
Everything in Almost Famous is pretty much true.
And that was all about the Almond tour, right? Most of it was based on the Almonds?
Well, the character that Billy Crudup played, where the kid writer is trying to get the key interview from, that's Greg Allman.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The band itself is, I think Cameron would tell you, is an amalgam of a
70s
lot of bands
rock band.
that had two competing creative entities.
Yeah.
You know, Glenn and Don,
Right, sure.
Mick and Keith,
Right.
Jimmy and Robert.
Right.
You know, that kind of thing. But, you know, the actual girl who got traded for the case of beer was, let's just say, a groupie I used to fraternize with.
Oh, yeah? The one in real life.
Yeah.
That's a real story.
That's a real story.
Sort of sad, right?
Yeah. But the irony of all this is, the more I'm around on a rock tour, the more I'm in the room, the more invisible I become.
With the camera.
Yeah, I mean, the more that I'm just blending into the fabric of the tour, the less obvious I am.
Yeah, you also made some good points in some of your rules where it's sort of like, you know, you can't get too familiar. You can't, you know, overstep your particular station.
Don't be the fifth member of the band.
Yeah, and don't get fucked up and make a fool out of yourself because, as you said, you may be friends with them, but you're just one step away from getting thrown out.
Yeah, you're an employee.
Yeah.
Okay? And they could, you know, I'm very good friends with Brian May and Roger Taylor.
Yeah.
You know, but you do the wrong thing, and what you get slipped under your door is not the room list for the next day's hotel. It's the one-way ticket home.
Yeah, and the wrong thing could just be like, just party, just have a few too many drinks, too many lines, say the wrong thing to one guy. One guy.
Yeah.
You're fucking out.
Exactly. But you always go in knowing who that guy is.
Right. You never got thrown off a tour for being an asshole?
No.
Did you ever get in trouble?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not for being an asshole, but I got in trouble. Well, I'll tell the story. What the hell? We were in, with Zeppelin, we were in Cleveland at Swingo's Hotel. And our next gig was going to be in Detroit. It was the big show at the Pontiac Silverdome. We had found out that there was a Little Feat press party that was going to go on in Detroit, and we had a couple of off days. So myself, Zeppelin's PR girl, my friend Daniel Marcus, who was the Atlantic Records guy, and Robert decided to leave the tour, get on a commercial flight from Cleveland to Detroit, and just go to the Little Feat party, right? Unfortunately, I did not tell Peter Grant or Richard Cole that we were taking Robert with us.
Right.
And we essentially kidnapped Robert and went to Detroit and never made it to the party, but that's a whole nother story. And when the band finally showed up the next day, I got a very heated phone call from Richard Cole, the tour manager, saying, you need to go to Peter's room immediately.
Yeah.
Peter was really pissed off because he didn't know where Robert was.
Right.
And you know, the photographer and the arts relations guy from the label hijacked him. So I was spanked. And what he did, and this was on a Saturday, he said, I need 6 11x14s of John Bonham slipped under his door by 12 noon tomorrow. Or else. And I knew what or else meant.
Yeah.
So now I have to find someone to print. You know,
Big
there's
pictures.
no labs open.
Yeah.
And everyone I knew in Detroit had been spending the whole last 48 hours coked out.
Yeah.
And I managed to find someone who let me into the Cream magazine darkroom on a Sunday morning. You know, the cab ride alone was like $100. And I hadn't mixed chemicals in years, and somehow I made it happen. I went in the darkroom. I made 6 prints. I got out of there, and I made it back to Peter's room by 11:58 a.m. by 2 minutes.
Right.
And I showed him the envelope. He said, put it under Bonzo's door, and I did it. And that was his way of spanking me.
But did he even need the pictures?
Of course not. No, because he knew it was going to be a
the drummer's pictures. You need 11 by 14 drummer shots.
The point was that this is what you have. This is the price you have to pay,
and it's your job. That's your job.
Yeah, that'll teach your ass.
Yeah,
and so things would happen.
I love that story about the aerial photograph.
Oh, at Nebworth, yeah.
I mean, because I've seen that photograph, and I wouldn't have known that photograph, and I wouldn't have known you took that photograph, but I wouldn't have known certainly why. So Peter Grant, tell that story.
Well, first of all, I love to fly.
Yeah.
I've taken flying lessons. I never got certified, but I'll go up in anything. I'll go up in 2 ice cream cones, sticks with wings and rubber bands. And we were at Nebworth.
What year is this?
This is 1979.
Yeah.
August 1979.
Yeah.
And one of the guys from the record label comes over to me and says, do you have any problem going up in a chopper? I said, no. I mean, let me at it,
Yeah.
So he said, good. Peter wants to take some aerial shots of the crowd. So I said, no problem. We go out to the little helipad that they have set up, and there's a chopper coming in that Jimmy's in. And it lands, and Jimmy comes out. Yeah. And then wait for the rotors to stop, and then I run into the chopper, and it's just me and the pilot. It was like a Jet Ranger helicopter, and I'm tied in with not even a seatbelt. It's maybe like, something
like a Huey, like a 4-seater kind of 2-seater thing.
Oh,
just like there's like
I think it was a 4-seater, but
strap,
not
no door.
No door.
Right, yeah.
No door. And I'm held in by some dental floss.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I've got a body and 2 lenses, I think, and a couple of rolls of film. But we put the cans on. The pilot says, so, what would you like me to do? And I said, well, just make 2 passes around so I could do a couple of rolls of color, a couple of rolls of black and white. And we do that, and he takes a 360 around the crowd, and he kind of banks this way, and I'm petrified that a lens is going to roll out the door and kill somebody.
Right.
A roll of film, 3,000 feet up, right? And but I had a blast. I love that. So took the photos, and we landed. Forgot about I just put them in the batch with everything else. And about a week later, someone from Swan Song calls me up and says, we need you to take the dozen best photos that you have from the aerial shots, black and white and color. Put the negs in an envelope. Someone will be coming to your door tomorrow. Give him the envelope. Don't ask any questions. Yeah. Next day, very James Bond like, right?
Yeah.
Next day, knock on the door.
Yeah.
I open the door. The guy's jacket and tie. Sir, I'm here for the envelope. And I just hand it to him. No thank you, no nothing. He just walks away. And that was the last I ever heard of it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I found out why it was so important to get those photos.
Yeah.
Peter Grant had a feeling that the promoter was going to try and fuck him on the ticket sales.
Yeah.
Because I think they reported 110,000, but there were obviously 130, 140, 150,000 people there. And Peter had access to some software that had just been developed for NASA. This was revolutionary at the time, by which you could take a photo, blow it up, split it into quadrants, and the software could figure out plus or minus about 100 people, how many were in each quadrant. Thereby multiply it by 4, and you'd have plus or minus 400 or so, the size of the crowd.
Yeah.
He wanted that in his back pocket in case he had to sue the promoter, which he did.
Yeah.
And he won.
No shit.
He won, yeah. So that was
why they needed that aerial shot.
That's forward-thinking Peter Grant, and I'm telling you, he was one of the great managers of all time, and I owe him a lot. And Jimmy and Robert and all of them. Peter he had street smarts. He trusted me from the get-go, and I have no fucking idea why.
Yeah.
He just had a feeling.
He also had your number.
Yes, he did. But, I mean, this is Led Zeppelin. You don't.
Sure, man.
You don't. This is the top of the mountain, baby. You don't fuck around with them.
And that really kind of built your resume, right?
Exactly. And the passport photo I took for Jimmy.
I love that thing. And that seemed to kind of.
And you know what? That ended up years later being the cover of Jimmy's photo autobiography book that came out about 3 years ago. Oh, yeah, it's the cover. And there's just something about his eyes.
And then you did, but there's a whole series of portraits in there that, I mean, I don't know what the first portrait you did that close, but the fact that it was again, you had to turn it over, overnight. They needed a passport for so he could go to Egypt. So you were shooting it for a very specific reason,
right.
But there was something revealing about the portrait that must have compelled you to do more portraiture.
Well, I mean, I would do some whenever I could, but this was a specific need. They came to me on the plane about 1 a.m. saying, Jimmy and Robert are going to Egypt at the end of this leg of the tour, and we need a passport photo for Jimmy's visa. Excuse me, that has to go to the Egyptian consulate. What time does it have to be there? Because I'm all about deadlines. Just
right.
Tell me what the fucking deadline is. Well, it's got to be there by 3 p.m. tomorrow. I'm thinking, oh shit. So I take Jimmy in the back of the plane and I shoot 3 frames.
Yeah.
And I know pretty much how tight it has to be. I know what a passport photo is. And I run the film over to the lab, and I get there early. I put in the night drop, and I get there early, and I wait around for the prints, and Jimmy let me pick the photo out. And we got the prints made, and I brought them over to the band's office, and they sent someone to the Egyptian consulate, and we got in under the wire, and 40 some odd years later, Jimmy picked that photo for the cover of his book, which it was astounding and a huge honor for me, and showed me that even a passport picture can have that glint in the eye, or that window to the soul, whatever you want to call it.
Well, what also fascinated me about the stories was how it was a smaller world then. There were 2 things that were happening. Clearly, there wasn't as much traffic.
You got that fucking right.
You guys are running around. I got to get this over there in an hour. I got to get this into the city. I got to get this over to the lab. And you're like running around. And I'm like, that would have taken 3 hours today.
Yeah.
Or 4 hours, even in New York. And also the idea that there were labs. I mean, that the entire business was hard copy shit, man. I mean,
yeah.
And like that whole world is gone.
Pretty much. I mean, there's still a little of it here and there, but that's what you did. You had film developed, you had prints made, you had duplicate slides made. Contact sheets. And people look at my contact sheets, and I mean, there are people.
Just put a book of contact sheets out.
You never know. There are people who are not that much younger than we are who have never seen a contact sheet, don't get the concept of it. And when you look at my original contact sheets, these are the ones, the dog-eared ones that I've been printing off of and looking at for 45 years.
Yeah.
And I hate editing on a screen. I hate digital. I hate everything about digital photography, but that's a whole nother issue.
You like the little the little things.
Well,
you look at
the
contacts with
my eyes.
Do you find the eye hole?
A loop.
A loop. Get the loop. Yeah.
Yeah, but my eyes and my brain is trained to look at an entire proof sheet and then be able to zone in on a certain frame.
But I got to tell you, it's got to be on some level. I don't know when or how you made the transition, but the difference between running with a bag of 95 rolls of Tri-X, to the lab, and just having a camera with a self-contained computer unit with a filing system has got to be different. More what? Anything?
Well, I'll tell you what.
Practical.
Not to me. It's impractical. I can edit 95 rolls of film on contact sheets in a quarter of the time, even less.
To go through it on a computer.
Then I can go through them on a computer.
Because I guess it's with a computer and with what you can do to an image, before you even print it, it creates the same. It's like when you write. There must have been something like writing with a typewriter where you didn't have the option to cut and paste. You didn't do it.
Right. Well, it's not even that. It's just the way that on a computer, you have to download the cards. then the originals have to be put in a folder, and then your selects have to be marked, and then this and that, and it's fuck. Give me a contact sheet and a grease pencil. Boom, 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 boom. Print these.
Yeah,
that's it.
You still do it that way?
Yep. Well, whenever possible. I mean, I have to shoot digital sometimes. But
you can still get all the film. What you usually shoot? What was all the concert stuff? Tri-X with the
Tri-X. Usually Tri-X pushed a stop or two.
Yeah.
Which would be 800 or 1600. High-speed Ektachrome. High-speed Ektachrome Type B, which is tungsten balanced. Kodachrome 200 when they came out with Kodachrome 200, and that was pretty much it. And
the right lenses.
Of course, the right lenses and, faster lenses. And it's the lenses are not the optics are not much different than what you use now. I mean, a 135 millimeter lens is still a 135 millimeter lens.
Yeah.
But there are so many bells and whistles on these damn cameras now that, I mean, the instruction book for a Nikon F5 or the F6.
Yeah.
It's
same
like this thick.
Yeah, same with cars. Yeah, it's like they keep adding things. What do you need?
I mean, I have to travel with instruction books for all my digital cameras.
Yeah.
We were in Rio with Queen 2 years ago, and I have an assistant out by the soundboard, and all of a sudden she calls me on the cell phone. There's something beeping and blinking that I don't know how to turn off, and so I gotta send a guy out with the Spanish version of the instruction booklet. I mean, give me a fucking break. And I use them on manual override anyway.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it's a great book, and and I don't usually, I get a lot of books and I get a lot of photo books, and there's not that many photo books where you have them, but how many times you go look at them? And I read the whole book. Too, and I'm a rock fan. So in the essays really made a difference for each segment. But I liked what you said. What was interesting after all the concert, footage and some of the intimate portraits, I really liked the one of, Booker T and Steve Cropper.
Great.
Like, that was out of nowhere. You got Booker T and Steve Cropper. And they're really kind of weirdly intimate photographs.
Yeah, I was 17 when I shot those.
Oh, some of those are that long ago, huh?
Those are kind of what I call rescued negatives.
Oh, those are the ones from the section where you had where you didn't have enough light, but because of computer technology.
Right. You can scan something and get as much information off the negatives as possible. Oh, no,
really, kid? Yeah. And there's a bunch of those in there, right?
Yeah, and we could do a whole book of those rescued ones. I think there's a shot of James Taylor in there.
Oh, yeah, man.
That's a rescued negative,
no
too.
Kidding.
Yeah.
In that period, too, I talked to him in here, and he was submerged in dope.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
And you can feel it in that photo a little.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, I agree with you. I mean, I'm really proud of the fact that, it's a body of work.
Dude, yeah. And the way you broke it up is beautiful. The performances, those pieces.
You.
But I really like what you had to say about studios.
They're kind of a place that I've never, it's not that I don't feel comfortable in a recording studio, but I feel like it's a place I'm not supposed to be.
Yeah.
That I have, because that's where those people
doesn't feel like anyone should be in
do what they do,
you know?
So
like a sanctuary.
Yeah. And I'll go in and shoot and I'll hang back cause that's their dark room. That's where their process happens.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, I'm thrilled that you dig it, because I'm really proud of the text and wanted to let people in on the experience of what I do. And at the end of the book, I want the reader to feel like you've just come off the road with Led Zeppelin for a year and a week with Guns N' Roses and around the world with Bruce, and feel exhilarated and exhausted, because that's how I feel every day.
Yeah.
And that's where the title came from.
Yeah, the title is.
And I just thought, oh, God, is that a great title?
Exhilarated and exhausted.
I sat on it for a day, and I called Cameron, and I said, am I out of my mind, or is this really genius? He said, it's fantastic. So.
Oh, and also, you told some of the stories, which is great, but I don't want to ruin the Kiss and the fake snow story for anybody, or Motley Crue on the real glacier for anybody.
Yeah. Or Pearl Jam in the plane.
Oh, that's good too. The Pearl Jam in the plane. And I also like that moment you had with Dylan, which I think probably lasted. It still lingers with
Bob
you.
Dylan Called Me a Leech is the name of the piece, and that was. And he did. And well, you know that picture of him and Joan where he's looking at me in those steely eyes? Yeah. That's Bob Dylan.
Yeah. Well, but you shot him a few times, and he eventually seemed like he accepted you.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, he's been photographed. He's probably been photographed more than all 4 Beatles together. Yeah. I mean, so it's all, you know, he just goes by rote. And, you know, I did the Wilbury stuff, which
I like that whole thing where the phone call
Tom and George,
the phone call with Tom, and then George gets on, and
that's all I remember.
They were all nervous about Bob.
Yeah, they're all, you know, hey, we'll shoot when Bob's ready, and don't just be careful of Bob. And this is George Harrison telling me this. You're a Beatle. You trump Bob Dylan. Okay. So and then Tom walks in the room saying, okay, I just want to tell you now, when Bob's ready, and Bob this, and okay, I get it, you guys.
You already had a chip on your shoulder about Bob.
Jesus, you know, but Bob was.
That would have been so good if he said, "There's the leech."
Tell me about it, man. I know, I was petrified. Leech, you're a leech, and we'll let the listeners read the book and find out the rest of that story.
Great book. Thanks for talking, Neal.
Thanks so much, Mark.
That's it. That was interesting. That bird just landed there. Don't forget, folks, Sonos One blends great sound with Amazon Alexa, the easy-to-use voice service for hands-free control of your music and more. Sonos speakers already sound great, but now you can control your entire Sonos system with your voice. Even manage your smart devices with Sonos One. And now, for a limited time, Sonos is offering 10% off one order of $2,500 or less for any product on Sonos.com. Just use the promo code WTF10. That's capital WTF10 at Sonos.com. I'm going to play a little guitar and we'll get out of here. I think that's a good tone. It's just built-in vibrato and the some reverb, Stratocaster, 3 chords. I'll add a 4th one. That's the way it goes in here. Did I tell you that I'm going to have the garage documented before I dismantle it?